I'm Tom Fisher. I'm the town manager for the town of Frisco. And we have kind of an unusual situation this year. Maybe not totally unusual, but it's happening this year. It is the municipal election time. We've had the mayor's seat that's open and 3 council seats. We've had 1 candidate for mayor and 3 candidates for the 3 council seats. So one of our candidates is missing tonight because he's working, and I'll tell you about him in a second. But these are your council and mayor-elect. So our election is actually canceled as of Thursday, so as of tomorrow. So when you get your ballots, so tell your friends this too. When you get your ballot, you are still going to get a ballot in the mail because of state law conflicting with our town code. We couldn't cancel printing the ballots in time to get them out of the mail. So you're still going to get a ballot. Don't have to turn it in. This is your council and mayor-elect. So there will not be any counting of ballots this year. This is an important event, even though we're not having an election. It's important for you to get a chance to see who your elected officials are going to be, to see how the process works, of how we learn about them, learn about what they think about certain things in the town. You know, we've got big issues in the town that some of them are regional issues, some of them are specific to the town. Housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, some of the biggest issues out there that both the town and the county and the state are dealing with, and of course we hear about that nationally as well. Affordability of all different things, whether that be childcare or transportation. All of those things are important to this town council. But even the basic things like how we get our water, the quality of our water, how much you pay for your water, whether we're conserving water or not conserving water, those are important issues. Our roads, how well they're paved, how well they're not paved, how we're enforcing or not enforcing parking. All these types of issues come up on a yearly basis, and it is these folks, whether they've served on the council before or are new to serving on the council, are going to be dealing with these from the policy level. As the town manager, I'm their sole employee. The rest of the 100 or so employees that work for the town work for me. So I'm the one that helps the council implement their policy into operations, into budgets, into the different programs and things that we do to advance all the things that a town needs. Our mayor-elect is Rick Inkin. He has served on the council and has been our mayor pro tem for the last 4 years. 4 years or 2 years?
2 years pro tem, 8 years council.
Perfect. And I'm sure he's going to talk about that when he introduces himself. Andrew Aronson has been on the council for the past 4 years and is now going to serve another 4 years. And then Martin Allen is one of our new members who will serve a 4-year term. I'm going to talk for a second, and I got to get my glasses down because it's written down. Dan Kibbe is our other new council member. He has served on the council before, so he's not new to this. And I'll read through the bullet points that he provided us for tonight. Unfortunately, he's working at the Fifth Avenue Grill as we speak. He's a returning member to the town council. He's a former land surveyor and now manages local restaurants. He's lived in Frisco since 1988. Graduated from the University of Maine with a degree in forestry management. I won't say the year because that'll give away his age. His comments for this, he's from Manchester, Connecticut originally, and has driven his motorcycle around South America twice, so that's a significant event. He also took a motorcycle trip to Denali, Alaska. Of course, I'm going to have to turn the page. In 2013, worked as a raft guide for a summer, and happened to meet the current mayor, Hunter Mortensen, on a shuttle bus ride in Alaska, and discovered they lived in Frisco at the same time. His proudest accomplishments or memories during previous council term are he worked very diligently on promoting the trail systems and municipal funding for the Peninsula Recreation Area and the Frisco backyard. Pushing for the town to retain the Mary Ruth workforce housing units for staff. About half of those are for staff, half of them are rented out to those in that workforce in the community. An expansion of the public works facilities building and the solar panels that are now powering that building. So that's the member that's not here. If you really want to meet him, I would say go down to the Fifth Avenue Grill and have a drink afterwards, and he'll be there. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our moderator, Roman, and he'll get this kicked off so that you can meet these new council member and mayor-elect.
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. And it's good to see some folks here. We're hoping for a little better turnout, but we understand the weather and the roads and that sort of thing. But we do thank you for being here. And you will have an opportunity to see this courtesy of SETV, and probably by Friday, according to Brad, the guy who's always been here for these video productions. Summitnews.com by Friday should have this up and running. Also, the town of Frisco, on the YouTube page for the town of Frisco, you'll be able to see this. So all your friends and neighbors that did not make it tonight, please let them know. They'll be able to see this. We've got some Q&As with our, I guess it's probably not quite exactly accurate to say candidates, since they are on the council and the mayor. So this is your governorship, your leadership here in the town of Frisco. And on the far end is Martin Allen, and then we have, may I call you Andy, or would you like to go by Andrew? Okay, Andy or Andrew Aronson, and of course Rick.
We usually go by Andrew on council to distinguish people.
Okay, to make it formal, it's Andrew Aronson and then Rick Incan to my immediate right over here. Gentlemen, welcome. Appreciate you being here. Should be very informal, not a lot going on as far as vying or jockeying for positions, since your positions are secure. So thank you for being here. There'll be a little mingling afterwards, of course. And just want to acknowledge some of the people before we get started with our questions. Chris in the sound booth in the back. Thank you, Chris, for making all of us sound a little bit better. And Brad, of course, who is running the show with the video production, and his associate, Steve. And Tony from iFurnace for supplying the very comfortable chairs for us up here on stage. We thank you for that. Gentlemen, are we ready? Let's start it. First question, and this will be applied to everyone. And Martin, if it's all right with you, we'll start with you and kind of work around this way and then alternate as it goes. What were you hoping to highlight about your candidacy, or your position as it were, and in this election year? And what do you think kind of sets you apart a little bit from other candidates or council members? You'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Roman. I think it's going to be a little difficult to set myself apart too much. I do know some of the council members. I know Rick. I've been on the river with Rick before. Hunter is a good friend of mine. He's on the rescue team with me, on the SAR team. And I also know Jesse. And I have to say, when I watched over the past 4 to 6 years, I actually ran one time and I lost to Rick. So it's good to be back up on a stage with him. But watching council over the past 4 or 6 years, more than anything, I've watched them all really come together and strive in very polite discourse, something uncommon these days, it seems, to really solve problems that are critical to our community. And I guess I'm not sure enough to say what would differentiate me in my approach, with the exception of just saying that my view of how to interact and solve problems is in alignment with almost everyone I've seen. I can tell you the things that got me to run this time are the same things that got me to run last time. Somewhere out there on YouTube, you can probably find that candidates forum that Roman also did at that time. And I can't quote myself, but I can paraphrase myself. I was, I started thinking about how I would walk home from the public house, i.e. the Moose Jaw, and I saw more and more houses and homes and condos have dark, no lights in the windows. And that's really what got me out, because that was at the beginning of the crisis we're really starting to see. And that really is what's motivating me this time. And I can just say on this one topic, I'm very motivated to make sure that we do everything we can. And it's a utilitarian, job. There's nothing perfect out there. There's no perfection. But really looking at all the issues around especially housing, and trying to decide what is the best, really kind of reaching into my inner John Stuart Mill and bringing out that utilitarian mind to say what works best for our community, because I am still, with the hard work that's been done with this council,
Martin,
I'm still very concerned.
Sorry for interrupting, but the 2 minutes is up, so.
I
would
heard
you
that
go
and I
ahead
thought
now?
it was actually Andrew's phone.
Thank you, Martin. Andrew, you're up next with the same question. What were you hoping to highlight about your position in this year, and what do you think sets you apart?
One of the things I want to highlight is serving on council is a pleasure. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. I care about the town. I got onto council because I thought I want to be involved in the town decisions. I want to be a part of the place I live and move it forward. But it's also a form of service, and I believe service needs to be enjoyable for the server. And working with the town staff, working with the other council people, has been a pleasure that's worth coming on for. And it's this format is really nice that we're not competing for a few slots. And one of the things that helped make a difference in my decision to continue on council is knowing that Rick was probably going to be the mayor. It creates a sense of stability, it creates a sense of camaraderie. I truly believe that when the 7 of us are together, we don't all think alike. And that's obvious in a lot of settings, but we respect each other a lot. And I think that's the thing that makes it so I want to continue serving. Why do I think I'm good at? My perspectives are different than some of the other people, but the importance of providing me with the data on both sides of whatever issue we're being asked to decide is so critical that my role on council sometimes I view as asking the questions that are harder than most people are comfortable asking. It probably creates some discomfort, but I think that level of understanding, that level of knowledge from all facets of the decision we're being asked to make is critical if you're going to ask us to make a decision. So I see you looking at your clock.
You still have a few seconds.
Okay. I love the fact that I don't know what party affiliation our fellow council people are. That makes it a pleasure to interact with the community. Half the community doesn't dislike me already, just because I'm one or the other. So I look forward to continuing the service.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. And sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm glad Chris got that taken care of quickly for you. And Rick Inken, our mayor pro tem, mayor-elect. How is that? Is it appropriate to say mayor-elect, mayor pro tem, or are they both correct?
Rick.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. And once again, the same question. What were you hoping to highlight about your position, your candidacy, that maybe sets you apart?
Thanks for the question, and thanks for the answers, and thanks, Andy. My philosophy on council is, well, let me back up. The reason I got involved is because I wanted to peek behind how the workings of local government worked, because then you can help see how the rest of the nation works, right? Local, county, state, and all of those things. And then I got a peek, and then I said, after my first couple of years, I said, I've learned so much, I'll stick around a little bit more. And throughout all of this, and into today, and how I'm going to continue to operate is, I don't have an agenda. I choose to come at topics and decisions, and I base my decision on information. And Andy will tell you I like to think a lot about it. And I was pointed out to me last night that a lot of times I do wait to go last to speak, and I didn't realize that it is somewhat purposeful, but I didn't realize it was that noticeable. And I'm going to work on that with the gang that I'm working with here, because it is a fun group, and if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be rerunning, or running for mayor, that is. So I think that's what sets me apart, is that I'm open to hearing other people's sides. I want to toss and turn their ideas, and Andy brings a lot of that to the conversation. I believe that as the mayor and council, and with the direction of Tom puts all the pieces together for us, but we have a vision of where the town, where we want to see, where we're entrusted with taking it to. And I feel very fortunate that I was part of the group that created that vision, and then we gave it to our manager and our former managers, and they put it together in our strategic plan, and now we're going to drive that forward. And all at the same time, if we need to change something, we're open, because at least from my perspective, the agenda is what is the vision of the plan of the town, and that comes through the strategic plan. And quite honestly, I was talking to Diane a little bit earlier. We have a plan. It's our community development plan is what we're going to take this forward. It's been vetted by our public, and we put it out there on all of our outward-looking platforms for folks to give us feedback. So if we needed to change, we would. So in summary, what I would highlight about me is I don't have an agenda. I want to take on each individual decision with the facts that are based in front of us, and root our decisions in the master plan that we've adopted.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. And moving on to the next question. And Martin, we'll just go ahead and just kind of keep it in this order, if that's all right with everyone. How do you see balancing the tourism financial lifeblood of the community here with the needs of those that work and live in our community, supporting that livelihood and lifeblood?
Yeah, that's seems like that's been the crux of every year I've ever lived in Summit County since the early 90s, the underlying discussion. And I think it's a constant discussion. I think I was actually last night I hopped on and watched council last night, and during the work session, they were doing the CDOT review, right? That was last night, yeah. And Jesse Burley, I like quotes, and Jesse Burley had a quote that I actually put in my little quote notebook, and it was, I want to trust the models, but I don't trust the models. And I thought that was brilliant, because you're looking at, this really good presentation by CDOT, but it's scary. It's looking at kind of a bird's eye view of this intersection that's really going to go in down here in what we perceive as still a small mountain town, and it's big. It's a big operation going in right there. And so we need that, though. It's just the reality of the tourism, of the growth we've had. And I would say, to answer that, Roman, I guess I don't have an answer. I think it's just a constant balance of, again, being a part of a council that theoretically is supposed to be elected. That you make your decisions, you balance it. And I can say that I don't feel that growth is the absolute end all, right? It doesn't always have to grow, and so I think you can temper growth but also keep things viable in the community. I can't believe I got under 2 minutes on that. So I cede my time.
Very good. I actually started the timer a little bit late, so thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. And just very quickly, I wanted to mention before we move on with Andrew on this same question, that please remember this is a snapshot of like a photo album. So you're seeing and hearing folks up here answer questions that really are just a little microcosm of what it's all about. So I would encourage you to talk to them outside of this setting and get to know them a little better if you don't already, and ask them other questions that maybe don't get asked here. That way you get to know and make better informed decisions. And this is what really shines about small communities, is we can do this. We can look people in the face, and just because we may disagree doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable. All right, as we move on, that same question. How do you see balancing the tourism financial lifeblood of the community with the needs of those that live and work in our community supporting that lifeblood? Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I mean, I start with the view that Frisco is a neighborhood within the larger community of Summit County. Each of our neighborhoods, if you go to a large city, each neighborhood has its own personality. We need to be, and the thing that most people, regardless of where they live within Summit County, you hear so often how much people love kind of the vibe of Frisco, that it feels like a neighborhood. We have community. That's the fundamental thing that drives, I think, for me, most of the decisions on council, is how do we make this more of a community? How do we make this a place that we live and people visit? Other resort towns are places that focus on, we need people to visit here. I want people to want to live here, and I want people to respect the fact that it's such a great place to live, that's where we want to visit. And so that creates kind of the balance of, we don't do everything for the visitors, but we want the visitors to join everything we do. Thursday night concerts, that to me is the quintessential event that it's taking place for the benefit of our local community, and we welcome visitors into it. So that to me is the balance. The economic side of how do we support those that are working here, I mean, that's the complex issue. That's the elephant in the room on all topics, is because it is such a great place to live and visit, it's ridiculously expensive. And we're constantly working and trying to figure that one out. But fundamentally, that's a problem that exists everywhere in America, everywhere probably in the world, that is desirable. And those are problems that we're going to try to tick away as best we can, but we're not going to solve that problem. We're too great of a place that too many people want to be here.
Thank you, Andrew. And finally, Rick, how do you see the balancing the tourism financial lifeblood of the community with the needs of those who live and work in our community supporting that lifeblood?
So when I look at what we've done over the last 8 years and what I've seen councils before me work on, is the place sells itself, right? The national forests, the ski areas, and then you throw in why I live here. And I said this to Diane a few months ago, and she thought it was a very interesting take. I was introduced to Frisco when I was walking down Main Street, surrounded by the three peaks on the west main of town, with wood-burned smoke in the air. Who wouldn't want to live here? And that's what brought me to Frisco. I was moving somewhere else, and we came here on a visit. So to balance our tourism lifeblood with our locals is, a philosophy, and there's several, because it has to be a multi-forked approach, is find out what the community wants, to the best of our ability implement that, and we want our visitors, to Andy's point, we want our visitors to join in and appreciate and have the ability to interact with the locals and what we have here. Whether it be the marina, the PRA, the concerts in the park, we have so many great things here that, you know, we've discussed where Main Street is our brand, and we want to turn the corner and bring Summit Boulevard, you know, and embrace it more of our brand as well. For a long, long time, it has been that economic engine of the county, of the town, and Main Street is also part of that, but it's just a different typology of businesses, and we want to make the whole experience better for everyone, and that'll continue to keep our visitors here. And another component of that, and I'm just going to unplug this for Tom, is to get look at our hotel inventory and see what we can do about looking at some other national brands coming in. So when folks Google Summit County skiing, they see those hotels come up, they'll come in and use our businesses, and all of that gives us the opportunity to support our locals.
Thank you, Rick. As we continue on, the next question for Martin will be: housing affordability and availability have been major topics of local governments for several years. Should this remain the focus of the Frisco Town Council?
I mean, for me, absolutely yes. I mean, I think, you know, you get some people like Hunter who were born here, but most of us, most of us came here. And kind of like to what Rick said, I think probably at some point we all had a visual attraction to it, not only to what we saw around us, but also maybe what we thought this town might be. And to me, this town has turned out to be exactly what I thought it was going to be. So I'm very grateful for that. But I also don't want it to be closed off. You know, I want it to be a community that's constantly changing. I want it to bring in all the people that will contribute to the community. And I want Vinny's restaurant to have staff and people that can afford to live here. I want Bobby Cotto's operation to grow. You know, this is the kind of growth I do want. I want Lisa's bookstore to be constantly busy with people who like to read books like me. And I think housing is a cornerstone of that. I mean, there's just no getting around it. You know, I'm not going to mention other mountain towns, but there's a mountain town that my wife and I would go to every year to ski, just kind of get out of the county. And I can't go there anymore. It breaks my heart to go there. And that town is gone. And you could probably put some thought in making that guess. And and the housing is the issue that crushed that town. And I just don't want to ever see that. You know, people don't have a right to be here, though, right? None of us have a right to be here. You have to work hard. You know, as Andrew said, his supply and demand, I mean, this place is great. A lot of people want to be here. But I think definitely finding ways, I mean, you look at Peak One, how many people in this community that we all know that live in Peak One that wouldn't be here if Peak One was never built? You know, so to me, that is a focus. And I think that has to be the main focus because it has so many tentacles to all the other issues.
Thank you, Martin. Appreciate that. And Andrew, same question. Housing affordability and availability have been major topics of local governments for several years. Should this remain the focus of the Frisco Town Council?
I would say several years goes back to probably 62 when the ski resort opened. And I don't know before that. So several years is forever that housing has been expensive and difficult. I found it enlightening. One of the most memorable moments of the 4 years I've been on council was when it was identified that I am the only person on council who did not purposefully live in their car for the benefit of living in this town. And that shocked me. It's just a fact to utilize, however, but it was an amazing moment to understand the magnitude of the problem. But in my head, the magnitude of the problem can only be solved if we understand what success looks like. And to some of the people in the room, I've gone on ad nauseum on my very simple question that's a very complex answer, which is, what does success in the housing situation look like? And there's two ways you can look at, well, two guardrails or goalposts. On the one hand, we can say if every business is fully staffed, then we don't have a workforce housing problem because we have enough workers to staff our businesses. On the other side of the spectrum is every worker who works in this town deserves a housing expense of 1/3 of their income, and the housing situation should be of a certain quality, whether it's one person per bed, washer, dryer in the unit, define it as we need to, but until we can come up with what does the solution look like, then the question becomes, what are we chasing? And so I find that to be very frustrating. Yes, we should continue to talk about housing, but we should also talk about what does success look like. And my other problem with housing that I've continued to deal with in conversations with council is I don't think government should be in the business of building housing. Government writes the rules. Government has subsidy dollars. Government is not a good builder. And we can look around some, we can go deeper in specifics, you may later. But fundamentally, we should be writing rules and providing subsidies so that the market can build the houses.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate that. And as we move on to Rick with the same question, housing affordability and availability have been major topics of local governments for several years. Should it remain the focus of the Frisco Town Council?
So I believe housing will always be part of a component of what the council should be paying attention to. And I agree with Andy in that government does write the rules. I personally like the we bring the land, you bring the ideas, and we'll help you with some financing, right? And I will, over the last 8 years, we've had a housing study, and now we have our most recent one. We have one every year or so. We've made a dent. We're not going to build our way out of this. The county knows that. Everyone's realistic on that. But we've built 1,000 units in the last 5 to 7 years, and that's progress. And we can't do it alone, right? It's a county-wide issue. We are a component of it. Frisco is in a unique spot where we're going to be at, if you will, build out, and then all of our future building will come through redevelopment, and that comes back to the rules. And I think it's important that we always be mindful of housing. A component, again, I think there's multiple prongs to this solution, but I think council should continue to pay attention to it. I think having a program that is built and that we're working on in the Housing Helps program, of where we have a program in place that people know about and can take advantage of, and we continue our buy down program going forward, because we have to have all different types of typologies to get the workers in our town. And as part of what we've got multiple projects in the pipeline right now, and we've gone after a great mix of incomes, which is great because we want to continue to build and mirror our community, right? So as we do these projects, yes, we need to pay attention and be mindful of it, but we also need to, change is always going to continue to happen, so we need to be part of helping the growth and the housing that we're working on mirror our community and what our community's needs are.
Thank you, Rick. And next question. Martin, what is your perception of how well the Frisco Town Council balances the basic town needs in infrastructure maintenance, public safety, water provision, along with strategic initiatives, either past or present, around recreation, climate action, or arts and culture?
That's a lot.
Six-part answer question, in case you were wondering.
That's a calculus of a question there. I've really been digging deep in the past 2 months, and I've watched all of the council work sessions and council meetings going back. I'm now back to 2022. And one thing that we kind of was noted earlier by Andrew that I have noticed, one is just the good discourse this council has had, the polite discourse. I found myself often when there were disagreements, finding myself often in the middle and just seeing both views being legitimate, but a decision has to be made. And so when you wrap all those topics into that question of how do I see, I guess how I see they've done, I think the balance has been good. I think it has been good. I think, you know, we didn't have arts discussion here 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and I think a community needs art. Does it need all the art? I don't know. I have to wait till I see what's put in front of me. But I see good balance of things so far. I think some of the big topics that have hit us, short-term rentals, of course, the new workforce housing that's being considered. In fact, I watched a really good discussion where Andrew was very concerned about the on-street parking that might be associated with 101 Main, and I think Andrew has a very good point about that. I mean, but I saw how they discussed this, worked it out, then voted, and that's called balancing. And so I think overall, what I've seen in the council, and I hope to be a part of, is a council that has balanced things well. No one gets everything they want, and it's a constant discussion. I think that might be my answer.
Thank you, Martin. And Andrew, the lengthy question of this topic, what is your perception of how well the Frisco Town Council balances the basic town needs in infrastructure, maintenance, public safety, water provision, along with the strategic initiatives, either past or present, around recreation, climate action, or arts and culture?
Two things before I go into that. One is, I think I'll probably speak for everybody. If we're not answering the question or going in the direction you wanted us to, please, this is informal. We're not fighting for each other's jobs. Follow up. I also want to point out, I don't know if you guys picked up what Martin said, which is he's watched every council meeting on record back, how far?
2022, my wife can attest to
2022. That's just an impressive level of commitment walking into a new service position. So I look forward to having you there. We are really fortunate as a town that for the most part, we are a very government wealthy town. We are not faced with massive budget cuts. We generally don't have or conversations. We have and conversations. Do we want to do this? Well, what do we have to cut? And between Tom and Leslie, the town manager and the finance director, some way or another, we seem to not be faced those really difficult questions of, do we want to rebuild the playground or do we want to, you know, build another housing unit somewhere or another? So we are balancing it. Could we do more? Of course. But I think that most of our conversations in the balance is more, are we overburdening the staff with more projects? And one of the indicators of how lucky we are as a town, when we were going through COVID, and I was elected in March or April of 2020, so it was the depth of the initial shutdown, we redid all of our budgets. The only budget scenario we did not plan for was an increase, and that's what happened. So it's been a fortunate process, but I will say the balancing act, the wrestling of the budget is kind of what you think is part of this job. And we don't have to wrestle as hard as a lot of other communities have to. And it's just another checkbox of how fortunate we are.
Thank you, Andrew. And Rick, what is your perception of how well the Frisco Town Council balances the basic town needs in infrastructure maintenance, public safety, water provision, along with strategic initiatives, either past or present, around recreation, climate action, or arts and culture?
So there's a, right, so well, although it's a lengthy question, it's a good question. And I believe the town council and the town of Frisco balances well. We try to have a forward-leaning, proactive stance on infrastructure. I'm a self-proclaimed infrastructure nerd. I want to know all about the water, the stormwater, and where that's all going. And you know, we didn't have a map of one not too long ago, and we just got that going. I want to know how much water we have. It's the most precious commodity this town is invested in, and we need to be very cautious with how we allocate those resources. When we look like, so housing's always out there, but we can't forget about, right, like we just talked about, recreation. You know, what the Big Dig was something that was on the books for many, many years. And through a lot of thoughtful conversation and input from staff, it was, if we're going to do this, let's do it. So we looked at the Big Dig, and then the marina and came, you know, flourished into what it is today. And we have a lot of success down there. And that gives us an opportunity to then look over at the peninsula and what do we have going over there. And while we're looking at the peninsula and we're looking at our new building out there, Slopeside Hall, and but that's all happening, and we're still looking at housing. And then when we're talking strategic, you look at the backyard. We had two competing budget line items, which we identified through the budgeting process 3 years ago now, where we had budgets for essentially the same project. So one was going for trails and one was going for wildfire mitigation. And it was in one of our sessions where the light bulbs went off and said, gang, let's pull these together. This is one thing. And then we were able to create partnerships with the Forest Service where we put some dollars in, and our return on investment is incredible. That project has now gone from a 350-acre project to now over a 1,400-acre project. It's one of the biggest projects going on in this national forest right now. So I believe in something that when I was talking to Hunter last night, something that I was going to share with our incoming folks is not everything can happen in 4 years. So as we do this, we have to understand that decisions we make and visions that we're implementing might not come to fruition for 5 or 10 years down the road, and that's okay. And that's what excites me about being in these positions, is what we're doing is going to come to fruition later on down the road.
Thank you, Rick. One more question. We're running a little long on time, but we'll get this in, and then, of course, we'll have a little mingling, meet and greet, and that gives the opportunity for everyone here watching this in person to talk more to these esteemed gentlemen here on stage. All right, Martin, last question for up here is, how do you see Frisco's role in regional issues around examples like affordable housing, childcare, food security, and transit provision?
Well, we have a role. Sorry, guys. We have a role for sure. I mean, we have a transit system here. We have the transfer area. We are a vibrant community, so we have a role to play in, as Rick said earlier, this is a county-wide issue with housing, and it has to be cooperative. I think Frisco has a considerable role. I think when you look at the communities, Breckenridge has taken a very different role than, say, Silverthorne has over the past few years, and Dillon has, and of course the new town of Keystone out there. Then maybe we will take, because we don't have to follow everyone's lead, but we do have to work together with the communities in the county that we're a part of. And I'm just going to sound a little Pollyannish maybe, but I'd like to see taking a lead role as the town in the county, the community in the county, that doesn't shy away from these discussions, that doesn't shy away from voting yes or no, and then taking action on that, and sometimes taking a chance. I think I'll just, since this is the last question, I think I just want to end though. I think that's my answer, but I want to end by saying to everyone that is here, thank you for being here. I'm really looking forward to this position and to being on this council with this council in particular. So thank you, and thank you also to all the town staff who, I am always very impressed by the town staff of Frisco, Colorado, from Aaron out at the Tubing Hill to Stacy back there rocking it as town clerk. So thank you, Stacy, and thank you, town, and looking forward to the next 4 years.
Thank you, Martin Allen. And just don't forget, folks, that you'll be able to tell your friends, your neighbors, and anyone else who would be interested to take a closer look at your representatives, that the ones that aren't here, they'll be able to see this on summitnews.com, and probably by Friday, sometime during the day, check that, see if you can pull it up at that time. Town of Frisco, the YouTube page also, you'll be able to see this. And now, Andrew, for you, it is the same question. How do you see Frisco's role in regional issues around examples like affordable housing, childcare, food security, and transit provision?
First, I'd say I don't think we're quite done. I'm seeing some questions that are about to be handed up. But Frisco's, it depends on the issue. One of the best things that happens in our community that people may or may not know about is the mayors and managers meetings, of which I'm not a part of, but I have huge respect for, where the mayors of each of the towns and the managers, the commissioners, they get together, I think it's monthly, to discuss issues that are larger than Frisco. Frisco's not going to solve its own housing problem, let alone the whole county's or beyond. But we can coordinate and cooperate with the other towns, the other entities. And some days it seems like it's better cooperation than others. We take a leadership role in certain things. I think we're in the forefront in our community on environmental issues. I think there's some room to grow in the other communities to take our lead, but I also think that there are other issues that sometimes we look at the other towns and say, oh, they just did that, and that's a pretty good idea. You know, I think by way of example, we're pay as you throw, we're in it, should the others be? Breckenridge is leading in dark sky. We're having discussions, should we be there? We're kind of behind them in that issue, but we're in the forefront in others. So I'm pretty happy in watching the dynamics of town versus town, towns versus county, and I don't mean versus as in conflicting, but meaning how we're relating to each other. But the critical glue that keeps it together is there is constant communication between and among the towns through these meetings that is obviously beneficial. So I don't have more specifics of where we should be on each particular issue. I'm happy to if you give me 20 minutes. But it's a good thing right now.
Thank you, Andrew Aronson. And finally, with the last prepared question, and then we'll have one from the audience, that Rick, I'll throw this to you as far as this last prepared question. How do you see Frisco's role in regional issues around examples like affordable housing, childcare, food security, and transit provision?
So to Andy's point, right, it really depends on the issue. But with that said, Frisco is behind on some items, whether it be dark skies, and in a lot of areas we are a leader in the county. Our child care grant program was one that was, while Breckenridge had one in place, we got ours up and running, and now that's gone countywide, and everyone's participating in it, which is great. The other issues that we have going on, whether they be the affordable housing on that project, we're a partner in that with the rest of the community. We're striving for, we've talked about it, we have plans for it, of really being more communicative amongst the different municipalities of how much of what type of housing gets built in what part of the county. So on that aspect, it's not everyone wants to build X percent and not everyone needs to build that percent. We need to spread it out all over the county. That's how a good workforce housing project goes. So in that instance, we're a partner and we need to be at the table with all the other, and we are. And the mayor-manager's meeting is just one component of that. I believe that, I think Frisco does a really great job, not only because we are positioned in the middle of the county, but I believe we work really well with all the municipalities. And we are so fortunate to have council members that seek out relationships with other elected officials, not only in the county, but across the state. We participate in CAST, and that is a really great place to get ideas from other communities. On the transit side of the house, we are so fortunate to have Tom Fisher as our town manager, who came out of Summit County, Utah, and implemented a regional-wide transportation program. All other leadership in the county is looking to Frisco for how we can get it done. And it's that last mile, and we're looking at microtrans is what it's called. We have ideas here in town where we can bring the Frisco Flyer-ish back to life as a stopgap until we can really get the microtransit component figured out here in our community. And I'm super proud to be part of this town, worked with this council. We're in a really great position now, again, to lean forward into these issues and continue to be a leader within the community, while at the same time being a good partner with the rest of the other municipalities.
Thank you, Rick. We have a question here that has just been brought up, and this will be the last question up on stage for Martin Allen, as well as Andrew Aronson and Rick Inken. What are your thoughts on opening Frisco-focused deed restrictions up to Summit County workers who reside in Frisco but are not employed within the 10-mile basin? This question comes from Nate Hill. Martin?
This is a good question, and I'm going to give I actually do have something to say about this. Before I get into it, though, I do not have the experience that Rick and Andrew have, though, in actually addressing and having to deal with these issues, so take that into account. I get why we want to have housing that this community subsidizes, kind of maybe sometimes focused on people that will work in this community. But I would say there is a lot of people in our community that don't work in Frisco that are still part of our community. I'm one of them. I don't work here in Frisco. I work over at Keystone. I also don't have a deed restricted housing, but I think, I don't know the answer, but I think the idea that, and I think if that's Nate, the Nate I think it is, Nate provides a very good service in this county as with the Sheriff's Department as our community service deputy. And that's something that's important to me as a citizen of not only of the county, even though his duties do not affect Frisco necessarily. And to me, that makes a good resident. And I do happen to know Nate because he's my neighbor, and I see him occasionally. And he's a good resident. Like, he makes a good, solid resident for this community. I don't know, though, how you work that out, though, in reality. And that's what I mean is I don't have the experience these two gentlemen have, and I'm looking forward to hearing their answer. But I think somewhere philosophically, we have to open that window up to discussion, like, what is a person's value might not just be to our community that they actually work here. So I think that's my answer.
Thank you, Martin. Andrew, what are your thoughts on opening Frisco-focused deed restrictions up to Summit County workers who reside in Frisco but are not employed within the 10-mile basin?
I start with valuing full-time, people who live here full-time. So we're, as I said earlier, we're a neighborhood in a larger community, and restricting people from leaving our neighborhood to go to a different neighborhood because that's outside the boundary line, it's too restrictive. I wouldn't ever want to see somebody handcuffed to their house and precluded from getting a new job, even if it's in Summit County, because they have this deed restriction. I will say our deed restrictions are, and my background was as a real estate attorney and a developer, and so deed restrictions are something I'm familiar with, and the fact that we have so many different deed restrictions on so many different properties is confusing and a mess, and you're not at a disadvantage because it's something that's been discussed but hasn't, on a broad, all of Frisco basis, hasn't been brought to us. So we'll all fight through that together at some point. But fundamentally to the question, I'd love to reevaluate and I do look at it as handcuffing somebody to their home, and that's not a place anybody should be. I will ask a question. Are we going to have a moment for a closing thought?
Yes.
Or do it now?
I would say that we would have a closing comment from each of you,
Okay.
if that's okay with everyone, after we get done with this last question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew and Rick. This will be the last official question coming from Nate Hill. What are your thoughts on opening Frisco-focused deed restrictions up to Summit County workers who reside in Frisco but are not employed within the 10-mile basin?
So that question has been asked for a long time, and Nate, thanks for asking it here. It's appropriate to address, and whether you've heard it or not, that is gaining traction at the county level. That's being discussed at mayors and managers. It's being discussed at the housing authority. What are we as we move forward with deed restrictions? Is there room to have a yet another one? Right, and it's been a high level of frustration that there are so many different ones, but this one would be different. And I think if we put all the deed restrictions, because there's so many different ones in different buckets, I think there's room for a specific type of restriction where the work is not part of it. It would be you bring it to the live and you open it up to the county-wide. That is happening in Breckenridge, it's happening in Silverthorne, it's happening at the county level right now. It's not a new question, it's not a new desire. The folks have taken that further, right? We've had folks where I work applying for deed restricted houses, and they've been denied for various different reasons. And is it time to look at a particular type of worker deed restriction, right? Whether that be teacher, healthcare provider, public service, public safety. That is another conversation that's happening at the county level. So I'm open to having that conversation. I want to have that conversation and see where it lands. I know there's folks, I work for one of the fire districts up here. 80% of our employees live out of the county. We have overtime tomorrow and we can't fill it because of weather that's coming in. Folks don't want to come up in bad weather. It's a problem. So I think it's a great conversation that we're going to have. Know that there's traction at the county-wide level for it. I want to have that conversation. I'd like to reduce the number of deed restrictions and work on some more commonality ones, not only within the town, but at the county level. And one of those buckets would include remove the work geographic spot from it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rick. And also thanks to Nate Hill for submitting that question. Very insightful. And we're going to have a closing comment. And gentlemen, so we can get on to the kind of the meet and greet mingling portion. If you can make a closing comment as brief as possible, say around 30, 40 seconds, that would really help kind of move
Thank you,
things
Roman. I'm
along.
starting to get thirsty, and water's not doing it as I look at the bar over there. I jumped the gun earlier. I'll just repeat what I said. It's really, truly is, it's not hyperbole. I'm really honored to be on this council and this service to this town. I've spent 14 years being a service to our, EMS, our backcountry rescue team, and service is important to me. And I'm just, I'm sure you all would have voted for me. So, so again, looking forward to working with the entire council. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Martin. Andrew, final thoughts?
Thank you to the town, thank you to everybody who put this together. It's not probably going to garner the ratings that we had otherwise hoped, because I don't think any of us has said something that's going to make everybody say, you better go watch this. But I think it's good viewing, and I think the thing to take away is the camaraderie, the current camaraderie and the feel that exists within the Frisco Town Council, that we're all not like-minded, but like-directed, and we are motivated to do the best we can. And with that said, there will probably be people courteous enough to me tonight, or as they sit in their basement on a exercise bike and this happens to pop up and they watch it and they say, you did great. I'd love to hear from the people who say you didn't do great. I don't agree with you, because that's an important perspective of, one of the, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little, one of the, I think, in the world of an elected official, regardless, is the ability to listen to somebody, appreciate their view, possibly be swayed by it, but if not, be able to garner the respect that their view has been listened to and taken into consideration. And I value that opinion, even if I don't make a decision until it's time to make the decision, so any additional input is appreciated. And so, as anybody watches this, if you don't like what I said, email me, call me, and be polite and tell me why you disagree with me, and we'll have a great conversation and go from there. But the state of Frisco's Town Council is great, and I continue to look forward to 4 more years.
Thank you, Andrew. Final thoughts, Rick?
Let's see. Well, thanks, Roman. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and thanks for whoever views this. But with that, I've learned more from folks who have a different opinion than me throughout my entire life. That's how it's one way I learn things. We may not agree, but I want to hear their point of view. And another thing I want to say is I've learned also a ton of things by doing them wrong the first time. And I choose to believe that I can move forward and do it better the next time. So with that, we're going to continue to have issues that folks are going to disagree on, and we've got some already slated on our capital projects plan right now. And it's our role is to help manage the growth, because it's going to come whether we like it or not. So we need to be, again, proactive on managing it. And know that something that's always playing in my head that has gone through council and gone through town that I heard from an early council member was, let's keep Frisco funky. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rick. And thanks to all of you gentlemen, Martin Allen, Andrew Aronson, and Rick Inken, for being here and being part of this. As you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have professional politicians up here on stage. What you do have is great representation for the town of Frisco. So you should feel very good about that. And just knowing these gentlemen as briefly as I have from now and in the past, they are approachable, amiable, and please ask them more questions that you might have, and feel free to contact them, because the one thing I can tell here is communication is important, and part of the most important part of communication is listening. And all 3 of these gentlemen do listen. Thank you very much. And once again, let me just remind you about how you can see this in a couple of days. SummitNews.com, Town of Frisco YouTube page. That's where you'll be able to see the video and hear the audio. And once again, thank you to Chris in the sound booth, Brad and Steve for putting together the great video production, and Tony from iFurnish for the chairs that we're sitting in that are very comfortable. And if anybody got here a little early for the Taylor Swift dance party thinking it's starting, not yet. Thank you very much, folks.